The New Mexico desert held many secrets, but Dr. Sarah Chen never expected to find one that would change humanity's understanding of the universe. The night sky above the Chihuahuan Desert blazed with an unusual meteor shower, streams of light painting the darkness in shades of emerald and gold. Sarah stood beside her dusty Jeep, camera in hand, documenting what she assumed would be another fascinating, but ultimately explicable astronomical event. She couldn't have been more wrong. One of the lights separated from the others, its trajectory shifting from a graceful arc to an erratic spiral. Sarah tracked it through her camera's viewfinder, her archaeological training kicking in as she documented every detail. The object wasn't burning up like a normal meteor. Instead, it seemed to be fighting against gravity itself. "That's not possible," she whispered, lowering her camera as the object disappeared behind a distant mesa. Moments later, a deep boom echoed across the desert, followed by a flash of blue-white light that illuminated the landscape like artificial dawn. Sarah's hands trembled as she stowed her camera in the Jeep. 10 years ago, she'd been a respected archaeologist, specializing in ancient astronomical sites. Then she published her controversial theory about extraterrestrial influences on early human civilization. The academic ridicule had forced her into private research, but she'd never stopped believing. Now something unearthly had crashed less than a mile from her position. The Jeep's engine roared to life, tires spitting gravel as she navigated the rough terrain. As she crested a hill, she saw it, a gouge torn through the desert floor, ending at a structure that defied explanation. It wasn't a meteor or a satellite. The object was clearly artificial, its surface covered in swirling patterns that seemed to absorb the moonlight. Sarah parked at a safe distance, her heart pounding. The crash site was silent except for an occasional crackle of energy and the soft ping of cooling metal. She grabbed her emergency kit and approached cautiously, her flashlight beam revealing more details of the craft. It was roughly the size of a small bus, its design elegant and organic, despite its obvious technological nature. A sound stopped her in her tracks, a scraping followed by a hiss of escaping air. A section of the hull was moving, unfolding like a blooming flower. Sarah's scientific curiosity warred with her survival instincts. She should run. She should call authorities. Instead, she took another step forward. A figure emerged from the opening, tall and graceful despite its obvious injuries. It was humanoid but clearly alien. Its skin had a metallic sheen, and its movements were too fluid to be human. The being clutched something to its chest, an object that pulsed with inner light. Their eyes met across the crash site. The aliens were faceted like diamonds, reflecting Sarah's flashlight beam in rainbow patterns. It spoke, its voice a symphony of harmonics that made Sarah's spine tingle. "Help," it said, the word clearly difficult to form. "Please." Then it collapsed, the glowing object rolling from its grasp. Sarah rushed forward, her training in emergency field medicine overriding any fear. The alien was wounded, silvery fluid seeping from several cuts. As she knelt beside it, she noticed intricate markings on its armor that reminded her of the astronomical symbols she'd studied in ancient ruins. The alien's eyes flickered open. "I am Kixar," it said, each word carefully formed. "Guardian of the stellar crown. They must not find it." "Who?" Sarah asked, applying pressure to the worst of the wounds. "Who's looking for you?" "The Vorkath," Kixar managed. "They would use it too." The alien's voice faded as consciousness slipped away. Sarah looked at the glowing object, the stellar crown, apparently. It hummed with energy, its surface covered in symbols that tickled at her memory. They were similar to markings she'd documented in ruins across the globe, markings that had led to her academic exile. In the distance, she heard helicopters approaching. She had minutes, maybe seconds, to make a decision. Everything she'd theorized, everything she'd lost her career defending, was lying in front of her. If she stayed, the government would take over. The truth would be buried in some secret facility, and humanity would lose its chance to learn about its true history. The helicopters grew louder. Sarah made her choice. She carefully lifted Kixar, surprised by how light the alien was despite its height. The stellar crown she wrapped in her jacket and placed in her emergency kit. As she helped Kixar into her jeep, she caught a glimpse of black helicopters appearing over the horizon. The engine roared to life, and Sarah turned away from the crash site, her tires throwing up a rooster tail of dust. In her rearview mirror, she watched the helicopters descend on the empty craft. There was no going back now. Whatever was coming, she was part of it. Beside her, Kixar stirred slightly. "Thank you," the alien whispered. "You don't know what you've done." "No," Sarah agreed, pressing down on the accelerator as she drove into the darkness. "But I have a feeling I'm about to find out." Dawn painted the sky in shades of purple and orange as Sarah's jeep wound through the narrow canyon roads. She'd been driving for 6 hours, taking every back route and dirt track she knew, avoiding main highways and population centers. Beside her, Kixar drifted in and out of consciousness, the alien's silvery skin now dulled to a matte gray. The stellar crown pulsed rhythmically in her backpack, its soft light visible even through the thick fabric. Every so often, it would emit a low hum that made her teeth ache and caused static on her radio. Whatever it wasn't trying to stay hidden. Sarah pulled into an abandoned gas station, its weathered walls providing cover from the highway. She needed to check Kixar's wounds and figure out their next move. As she cut the engine, her passenger stirred. "We must keep moving," Kixar said, voice stronger than before. "The crown's energy signature will lead them right to us if we don't rest and plan." Sarah finished. "You're injured, I'm exhausted, and we need to talk about what exactly I've gotten myself into." Kixar's crystalline eyes studied her for a long moment before the alien nodded. "Your logic is sound. But first, we must mask the crown's signature." The Guardian reached for Sarah's backpack with long, elegant fingers. "May I?" Sarah handed over the pack, watching as Kixar removed the wrapped crown. In daylight, she could see more detail in the artifact. It wasn't exactly a crown in the human sense, more like a complex network of interlocking rings and crystals, each piece carved with symbols that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. Kixar pressed several points on the crown's surface in a specific sequence. The humming stopped, and the glow faded to a subtle shimmer, a temporary solution. The alien explained, "But it will help conceal us." "Good," Sarah said, pulling out her first aid kit. "Now let me check those wounds. And while I work, you can explain why someone like me, a disgraced archaeologist, is now running from both alien pursuers and my own government." As Sarah cleaned the silvery wounds, which seemed to be healing unnaturally fast, Kixar spoke. The alien's voice grew stronger, more musical, as if recovering its natural cadence. "The stellar crown is more than an artifact of power. It is a key to understanding the universe itself. My people, the Lyrian, have been its guardians for millennia. We used its power to seed countless worlds with life, to guide evolution, to nurture civilizations." Kixar winced as Sarah applied antiseptic, including earth. Sarah's hands froze. "You're saying your people influenced human development? That my theories about alien intervention were correct, though incomplete?" Kixar's eyes sparkled. "The symbols you found in ruins across your world, they are messages left by my ancestors, guideposts for humanity's development." Before Sarah could process this revelation, a low drone filled the air. She peeked through a broken window and saw a black drone passing overhead, its camera sweeping the area methodically. "Government?" Kixar asked, tensing. "No," Sarah replied, noting the drone's unusual design. "Not ours, anyway." "Vorkath scouts," Kixar hissed. "They track us already." The alien tried to stand but stumbled. Sarah caught them, surprised again by how light they were. "Who are the Vorkath? Why are they after the crown?" "They are destroyers, consumers of worlds. The crown's power. They would use it not to nurture life, but to reshape it, to create armies of slave species to bend evolution itself to their will. Kixar's voice carried centuries of bitterness. They have hunted my people to near extinction. I am one of the last guardians. The drone made another pass, lower this time. Sarah helped Kixar to the jeep, her mind racing. We need somewhere safe, somewhere with resources where I can figure out these symbols. An idea struck her. I have a friend, Dr. Marcus Wong. He runs a private observatory in the Rockies. If anyone will believe us, it's him. Kixar hesitated. Can he be trusted? He was the only colleague who stood by me when I published my theories, and his observatory is isolated, well-equipped. Sarah started the engine. More importantly, we're running out of options. As if to emphasize her point, 3 more drones appeared on the horizon. Sarah threw the jeep into gear, tires spraying gravel as they accelerated onto a dirt road. In her rearview mirror, she saw the drones change course to follow. They're not trying to hide anymore, she said grimly. No, Kixar agreed, checking the Crown's containment. The hunt has begun in earnest. The Vorkath believe themselves superior to humans. They will not expect resistance. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile as she took a sharp turn onto a barely visible trail. Then they really don't know humans very well, do they? The jeep bounced over rough terrain as Sarah pushed it to its limits. The drones fell behind as they entered a narrow canyon, their sensors confused by the rock walls. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Vorkath would send worse than drones, and the government wouldn't be far behind. As they emerged from the canyon, Kixar spoke softly. You understand that by helping me, you have placed yourself in terrible danger. I spent my career trying to prove humanity wasn't alone in the universe, Sarah replied, eyes fixed on the rough road ahead. I'm not about to back down now that I have proof. Besides, she added with a quick glance at her alien passenger, someone once told me that the best discoveries always involve a little danger. Your species is remarkably resilient, Kixar observed. Perhaps that is why my ancestors chose Earth for their experiments. The sun climbed higher as they drove north, the desert gradually giving way to scrubland. Behind them, the drones had vanished, but Sarah knew better than to relax. This was just the calm before the storm, and when it broke, she needed to be ready. She just hoped Marcus would be as understanding about harboring an alien fugitive as he had been about her controversial theories. Because right now, he was their only hope of understanding the Crown's secrets before their pursuers caught up with them. The Mountain View Observatory rose from the mountainside like a metallic mushroom, its silver dome gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Sarah parked the jeep behind the main building, hidden from the access road. Her whole body ached from 20 hours of nearly continuous driving, but they'd made it without further drone encounters. Your friend's sanctuary seems exposed, Kixar observed, studying the observatory's position on the ridge. That's the point, Sarah replied, grabbing her backpack with the crown. Marcus designed it this way. Clear sightlines in all directions. Nothing can approach without being seen. She managed a tired smile. He's always been a bit paranoid about government surveillance. Never thought I'd be grateful for that. They approached the back entrance, Sarah's hand hovering over the keypad. Just let me do the talking initially. Seeing you might be a bit of a shock, even for Marcus. Before she could enter the code, the door swung open. Dr. Marcus Wong stood in the doorway, his silver hair disheveled, and his eyes wide behind thick glasses. He looked from Sarah to Kixar, then back to Sarah. I saw you coming up the road, he said calmly, as if finding his former colleague with an alien was an everyday occurrence. Your timing is interesting. The astronomical community is buzzing about unusual meteor activity in New Mexico. He adjusted his glasses. Though I suspect they weren't actually meteors, were they? Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Marcus, we need help, and you're probably not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. My dear, he said, stepping aside to let them enter. I've spent 30 years studying unexplained astronomical phenomena and supporting your theories about ancient alien contact. Try me. Inside, the observatory was a maze of advanced equipment, computers, and star charts. Marcus led them to his private research room, securing the door behind them. As Sarah recounted their story, his expression grew increasingly animated. "Extraordinary," he breathed, examining the deactivated crown with barely contained excitement. "The symbols, they matched the patterns we documented in the Gobi Desert site." He looked at Kixar with undisguised fascination. "Your people left those markers." "Guideposts," Kixar confirmed. "The crown resonates with specific locations across your world, places where my ancestors conducted their work." Marcus practically bounced with enthusiasm. "The convergence points. Sarah, remember our theory about the ancient sites forming a geometric pattern? We were right." His expression sobered suddenly. "But you mentioned pursuers. These Vorkath. They'll find us eventually," Sarah said. "The crown's energy signature is only temporarily masked. We need to understand what it does, how to use it, before they catch up." Marcus nodded, turning to his computer. "I've been tracking unusual satellite activity since the meteor shower. Multiple objects in low orbit, definitely not ours or any known nations." He pulled up a radar display. "They're searching methodically." Kixar moved to study the screen, the aliens' presence casting strange shadows in the dim room. "Vorkath hunter-seekers. They are thorough, but not particularly creative. They expect their prey to follow predictable patterns." "Then we'll have to be unpredictable," Sarah said. She unrolled a global map across Marcus's desk. "Show us the convergence points." For the next few hours, they worked to overlay the ancient site locations with Kixar's knowledge of the crown's purpose. A pattern emerged. The sites weren't random. They formed a complex network, each location corresponding to a specific function of the crown. "It's not just a key," Sarah realized, staring at the map. "It's part of a machine. A planet-wide machine. A network for guiding planetary evolution," Kixar confirmed. "The crown connects to each site, allowing controlled release of energy to influence development of species." The aliens' crystalline eyes reflected the computer screens, but it requires precise calibration. In the wrong hands, it could devastate the entire planet, Marcus finished, forcing rapid, uncontrolled evolution, creating monsters. A sudden beeping from Marcus's security system interrupted them. He rushed to check the monitors, his face paling. "We have company. Multiple vehicles coming up the access road. Black SUVs, no markings." Sarah's heart raced. "Government or Vorkath?" "Both," Kixar said grimly, pointing to one of the screens. Among the SUVs was a larger vehicle, its design subtly wrong, like a child's drawing of a truck that wasn't quite right. "The Vorkath have made contact with your authorities. They can be persuasive." Marcus was already moving, pulling books from a shelf to reveal a hidden door. "The observatory has a maintenance tunnel. It leads to an emergency bunker in the mountainside. I installed it after the government tried to shut down my research. Your paranoia might just save our lives," Sarah said, quickly gathering their research materials. "Not paranoia if they're really after you," Marcus replied with a wink. He handed her a tablet. "I've transferred all our data to this. The crown's activation points, the geometric patterns, everything we've learned." His expression grew serious. "Go, I'll delay them." "Marcus, they'll arrest you. Or worse." He shook his head. "I'm too well known in the scientific community to disappear quietly. Besides," he smiled, "I've waited my whole life to prove extraterrestrial contact. I'm not missing this chance." Sarah hugged him quickly, then followed Kixar into the tunnel. As the hidden door closed behind them, she heard vehicles pulling up outside. They moved quickly through the narrow passage, the crown's faint glow providing just enough light to see. "Your friend is very brave," Kixar observed. "He's a true scientist," Sarah replied. "Nothing matters more than the truth." She paused, hearing muffled voices above. "But now we need to make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain. The crown's network, can it be used against the Vorkath?" Perhaps, Kixar said thoughtfully, but we would need to reach one of the primary node sites. The closest is Chichen Itza. Sarah finished, remembering the map. The Mayan Observatory. It's not just an astronomical site, is it? No, Kixar confirmed. It is one of the main control points for the entire network, if we can reach it. The tunnel shook with a distant explosion. Sarah quickened her pace, the tablet clutched tightly. Then that's where we're heading. But first, we need to get off this mountain without being spotted by either angry aliens or compromised government agents. You're taking this remarkably well, Kixar noted as they descended deeper into the mountain. Sarah managed a grim laugh. Well, I always wanted to prove alien contact was real. Though I have to admit, this isn't quite how I imagined it happening. Above them, more explosions rocked the tunnel. Whatever was happening at the observatory, Sarah hoped Marcus would be okay. They had the data, they had a destination, and they had a plan. Sort of. Now they just had to cross half a continent while being hunted by two different forces, reach an ancient alien installation, and somehow use it to save the world. Just another day in archaeology, Sarah muttered as they emerged from the tunnel into the gathering dusk. Marcus, you better be alive when this is over, because you're never going to believe how this story ends. The Mexican border town was a maze of narrow streets and flickering neon signs. Sarah and Kixar sat in a dimly lit cafe, the aliens' otherworldly features hidden beneath a hooded cloak. 3 days had passed since their escape from the observatory, and news reports were already painting a disturbing picture. Sarah's tablet displayed a news feed. Terrorist attack on research facility. International manhunt underway. The article showed her university ID photo alongside grainy surveillance footage of their escape. Below it, a statement from a special administrator Pierce warned the public about a dangerous technological theft. Your media is surprisingly easy to manipulate, Kixar observed quietly. The Vorkath have positioned themselves well. That's Pierce. Sarah pointed to a photo of a tall, severe-looking man in a dark suit. Notice anything odd about him? Kixar studied the image. His movements in the video footage are too precise. He is Vorkath, wearing a biomechanical disguise. A message notification blinked on the tablet, their only secure connection to their growing network of allies. After the observatory incident, several of Marcus's colleagues had reached out through encrypted channels, offering help. Some had their own stories of unexplained phenomena and government interference. Dr. Rivera is ready, Sarah said, reading the message. She can get us into Chichen Itza tonight. The site's closed for emergency maintenance, probably Vorkath activity. They know the significance of these locations, Kixar confirmed, but they cannot activate the network without the crown. Each attempt they make destabilizes the entire system. A new figure entered the cafe. Dr. Elena Rivera, a prominent archaeologist Sarah had collaborated with years ago. She sat casually at a nearby table, not acknowledging them directly. Marcus is alive, Elena murmured, appearing to check her phone. Under house arrest, but alive. He managed to wipe most of his data before they took the observatory. Whatever you're involved in, Sarah, it's big. I have friends in the government, the real government. They're worried about these special administrators taking control of key facilities. Sarah felt a wave of relief about Marcus, followed by fresh concern. How many sites have they taken? 3 that we know of. Giza, Mohenjo-Daro, and Göbekli Tepe. They're searching for something, using equipment we've never seen before. Elena's voice dropped lower. But that's not the worst part. People are disappearing. Archaeologists, astronomers, anyone who's published papers suggesting alien influence on human civilization. Kixar shifted slightly. They are being processed, converted. The Vorkath need human agents who understand Earth's ancient sites. Elena's eyes widened as she heard Kixar's musical voice, but she maintained her composure. I have a team ready. Researchers who've stayed off the radar, who've been documenting similar patterns at sites across the Americas. We can help you reach the Central Pyramid. It's dangerous, Sarah warned. If you're caught. Sarah, they're not just rewriting history anymore. They're trying to rewrite humanity itself. Whatever you and your friend are planning, we want in. Before Sarah could respond, her tablet pinged with an urgent alert from their security system. She checked it and felt her blood freeze. We need to move. Now. Someone just accessed Marcus's sealed files. They have our research on the geometric patterns. They split up immediately, following predetermined escape routes. As Sarah and Kixar hurried through back alleys, the aliens suddenly stopped. Wait, something is wrong. A figure stepped out of the shadows ahead. Dr. James Chen, another member of their underground network. Sarah, thank God I found you. The Vorkath are closing in. I know a safe route to the ruins. But Kixar was already pulling Sarah back. His vocal patterns are wrong. The Vorkath are improving their mimicry, but they cannot replicate human imperfection. The false Chen smiled, his face rippling like water. Clever guardian, but not clever enough. His form shifted, revealing the metallic insectoid features of a Vorkath warrior. More shapes emerged from the shadows, surrounding them. The crown, the warrior demanded. Give it to us, and your species may yet survive as something useful. Sarah reached slowly into her bag, as if going for the crown. Instead, she pulled out a small device Alina had given her, a modified electromagnetic pulse generator. You know what humans hate most? She asked. Being told what we can and can't become. She activated the device. The electromagnetic burst wasn't strong enough to affect human technology, but the Vorkath's biomechanical disguises shorted out spectacularly. Their true forms were revealed. Towering, chitinous creatures that looked like a nightmare fusion of insect and machine. The distraction gave them the opening they needed. Kixar moved with impossible speed, pulling Sarah through a gap in the Vorkath line. They ran as inhuman shrieks echoed through the streets behind them. Alina's team. Sarah gasped as they ran. We can't trust anyone now. The Vorkath could have replaced any of them. Not necessarily, Kixar replied. The crown, it can detect their presence. That's why they cannot simply take it by force. It rejects their corrupt evolution. They reached their backup vehicle. An old truck Alina's people had left for them. As Sarah drove toward Chichen Itza, she processed what they'd learned. The Vorkath weren't just after the crown. They were trying to subvert humanity itself, turning Earth's ancient power into a weapon. We've got maybe 12 hours before they realize where we're headed, she said. Can we activate the site's defenses with just the crown? Yes, Kixar said. But Sarah, you should know. Activating the network fully, it will have consequences. The energy release alone could kill us. Sarah asked, eyes on the dark road ahead. Could change us, Kixar corrected. All of us. The network was designed to guide evolution, using it as a weapon, even in defense. Sarah gripped the steering wheel tighter. So either we let the Vorkath turn humanity into their puppets, or we risk changing what it means to be human entirely. She managed a grim smile. Actually, that choice seems pretty clear to me. As they drove through the night, the crown pulsed softly in its container, its rhythm matching the hum of ancient power growing stronger as they neared their destination. The real question wasn't whether they could activate the network, it was whether humanity was ready for what would happen when they did. You know, Sarah said after a long silence, I spent my career trying to prove aliens influenced human evolution. I just never thought I'd be the one influencing it next. Kixar's crystalline eyes reflected the starlight. Perhaps that was always your species' destiny, not to be guided, but to take control of your own evolution. Behind them, distant lights appeared on the highway. The race to Chichen Itza and humanity's future had begun. The final stand. Chichen Itza loomed before them in the pre-dawn darkness, its ancient stones holding secrets far deeper than any archaeologist had imagined. Sarah and Kixar crouched behind a fallen column, watching Vorkath disguised as security personnel patrol the plaza. The crown pulsed stronger now, resonating with the pyramid's hidden power. "The control node is beneath the main pyramid," Kixar whispered. "My ancestors built this place not just to observe the stars, but to channel their energy. Every alignment, every angle serves a purpose." Sarah checked her tablet's display one last time. Alina's team had managed to send detailed scans of recent architectural changes, modifications made by the Vorkath as they tried to access the site's power. They've already started converting the lower chambers, but they can't activate anything without the crown. A familiar voice called out across the plaza. Dr. Chen. Administrator Pierce stepped into view, his human disguise now showing subtle glitches after the EMP exposure. "Did you really think we wouldn't anticipate your arrival?" More figures emerged from the shadows, some human, some clearly Vorkath in their biomechanical suits. Among them was Marcus, looking disheveled but alive. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Marcus called out, his voice strained. "They're in my head. Some kind of neural parasite. I tried to fight it, but..." He clutched his head in pain. Pierce smiled, the expression uncanny on his increasingly unstable disguise. "Humanity's greatest weakness is its individuality. So much potential wasted on personal desires and freedoms. We offer unity, purpose, evolution guided by superior beings. You offer slavery," Sarah shot back. "Forced mutation into whatever serves your needs. Look around you, Dr. Chen. Your own species builds pyramids to contain power they couldn't understand. They waited for gods to guide them. We are those gods, returning to complete what we started." Kixar stood, crown in hand, its light growing stronger. "You lie. The Lyrian built these sites to protect humanity's right to choose its path. The crown's power was meant to nurture, not dominate." Pierce's form rippled, showing the insectoid Vorkath beneath. The Lyrian were weak. They scattered their secrets across 1,000 worlds, hiding their power instead of using it. But we learned. Every world they seeded, we harvested. Every species they guided, we perfected. "Perfect is boring," Sarah said, standing beside Kixar. "Humanity's messiness, our chaos, that's what makes us evolve. We don't need gods or guides. We need freedom to choose our own path." She nodded to Kixar, who raised the crown. Its light intensified, connecting with the pyramid structure. Hidden glyphs began to glow across the ancient stones. Pierce laughed. "You cannot activate the network without proper authorization. The Lyrian protocols were designed to recognize worthy successors." Kixar interrupted. "Not by their perfection, but by their choice to protect life's right to grow freely." The crown's light enveloped Sarah. She felt its power course through her, ancient knowledge flooding her mind. The symbols she'd studied her whole career suddenly made sense. Not just their meaning, but their purpose. "I understand now," she gasped. "The sites, the symbols, they're not instructions, they're offerings. The power was always meant for humanity, once we were ready to choose how to use it." Pierce's form fully reverted to its Vorkath shape, mandibles clicking in rage. "Then die with your precious freedom." The Vorkath forces attacked, their weapons firing strange energy bolts. But the crown's power had already spread through the pyramid complex. Every stone hummed with energy, creating a barrier. Sarah felt the site's true purpose activate. Not a weapon or a tool of evolution, but a nexus of possibility. The network doesn't control evolution, she realized. It unlocks potential. All potential. The power surged outward in a wave of golden light. Where it touched the Vorkath, their biomechanical forms couldn't adapt fast enough. Their forced evolution collapsed in on itself. The human collaborators, including Marcus, fell to their knees as the neural parasites controlling them dissolved. But the wave didn't stop there. Sarah felt it spreading across the earth through the other sites, touching every living thing. Not changing them, but awakening something dormant within their DNA. the capacity to choose their own path of evolution. "What have you done?" Pierce shrieked as his form began to dissolve. "Given humanity what your kind never could," Sarah answered, "the freedom to become whatever we choose to be." The sun crested the horizon as the wave completed its journey around the planet. In its wake, it left not chaos or forced mutation, but possibility. Every human would now have the potential to guide their own evolution, not toward some predetermined, perfect form, but toward whatever they chose to become. Kixar placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "My ancestors would be proud. You've proven why they chose Earth as the final repository of their knowledge. Not because humans were perfect, but because you understand the value of imperfection." Marcus stumbled toward them, free of the Vorkath influence. "The readings. Every ancient site on Earth is active. The geometric pattern we discovered, it's some kind of planetary defense network now." "Not just defense," Sarah said, watching the crown's light fade to a gentle glow. "It's an invitation, a gift from Valyrian, waiting until we were ready to choose our own destiny." In the days that followed, the world would struggle to understand what had happened. The Vorkath threat was gone, but humanity was forever changed. Not mutated or evolved against their will, but given the freedom to grow in whatever direction they chose. Sarah looked at the tablet containing their research, then at the crown, now dormant but still humming with potential. "So," she said to Kixar, "want to help me write the most controversial archaeology paper ever?" The alien's crystalline eyes sparkled with amusement. "Perhaps we should start with a simpler truth. You were right all along. Humanity was never alone. You were just waiting for the right moment to join the conversation." As the morning sun illuminated the ancient pyramid, Sarah realized that her life's work hadn't just been about proving alien contact. It had been about preparing humanity for this moment, not to be guided by ancient astronauts, but to take their place among the stars on their own terms. The crown would remain on Earth, not as a weapon or a tool of control, but as a reminder that evolution's greatest power wasn't in achieving perfection. It was in having the freedom to choose your own path, even if that path led to beautiful imperfection. "Ready to help humanity figure out what comes next?" she asked Kixar. The last guardian of the Lyrian smiled. "I believe that is what friends are for." Above them, the stars seemed somehow closer, not as distant points of light, but as destinations waiting to be reached by a species that had finally earned the right to chart its own course through the cosmos.